Good evening, everyone, and welcome from Princeton University. I'm Dan Day in the Office of Communications, and tonight we're bringing you a special program about the Princeton University Bridge Year Program. The Bridge Year Program is a unique aspect of Princeton. It allows our incoming freshmen to defer their enrollment for a year so they can spend a year in community service in an international location. And with us tonight to explain the program are four students who have been through the program and one of the administrators of the program. You are able to ask questions of our panelists tonight by using the Q&A app in your Google Plus viewing window. You can enter a question. Those of you who are viewing can see the questions from other people, and you're welcome to vote those up if you'd like a particular question answered or you think that question should be asked as well. So without any further delay, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Leroy, who runs the Bridge Year program. Scott, welcome.
Thanks, Dan. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. As Dan said, my name is Scott Leroy, and I'm the Associate Director of the Bridge Year program. We're going to take about 45 minutes to talk about the Bridge Year program and answer any questions that you have about the program or about the application process. We hope to get to all of your questions. If we run out of time, you can always send the Bridge Year office your questions at byp@princeton.edu. You can also email your questions to students participating in this Hangout if your questions are related to a specific program location. So as you think about any questions and submit those questions, I will turn things over to our Bridge Year panel and allow them to briefly introduce themselves. Becca, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Hi, my name is Becca Khan. I'm a freshman. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I did Bridge Year Brazil last year, and that's in Salvador, which is a city on the northeast coast. It's known for its music, its food, its dance, and it was really laid back. The culture, the people, everyone's so great. My primary service placement there was I was working in a community preschool in one of the favelas and teaching kids. I made lesson plans. We also had secondary placements, and I worked in an HIV/AIDS home. There are new placement options this coming year, and you can check those out on the website. And then here on campus, I'm in Rocky College. I'm on the Rocky College Council. I'm involved in the Center for Jewish Life on the student board. I volunteer with an arts group. We do art with kids. And I have also taken Portuguese classes and continued the language after leaving Bridge Year, and it's been really great.
Hi everyone, my name's Omid Ebrishamchian. I went to Senegal last year. I'm also a freshman. I'm majoring in Operations Research and Financial Engineering, which is one of the 6 engineering majors. In Senegal, I worked for Tostan, which was an NGO that worked primarily on community-led development. So we have they had a 3-year-long program that communities would kind of go through, and I would work both in the volunteer department, and also I had a project working with communities that after the 3-year program, how they interacted with Tostan and other organizations. And here on campus, I do a couple of things. I'm a research assistant for the sociology department on a couple projects. I'm on the USG Senate, working in the communications committee, and I'm a board member for the Office for International Programs, their student board. And yeah.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Hi everyone, I'm Yuri Lee. I went to China last year. I worked with Eden Ministry, which is an anti-sex trafficking nonprofit. We were in the city of Kunming, and I was primarily an office intern, so I did a lot of office work, but I also got to have hands-on experience with working with women who had been sex trafficked. I'm also a freshman. I'm in Maddie College. I'm probably going to be a Woodrow Wilson School major. I'm also considering econ, and I'm involved in a couple of things on campus. I'm on the equestrian team. I'm in Princeton Against Sex Trafficking, which is an awareness-raising group for sex trafficking, and I'm also on Advertise This Consulting, which is like a consulting group that does free consulting for nonprofits in New Jersey. So.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Sammy. I am a freshman as well. I was in India, and in the city of Varanasi, I was a teacher. I was teaching English, I was teaching science, I was teaching history, among other things, to people 2nd through like 9th grade. I was living with a wonderful, wonderful homestay family, and I was also learning sitar. I don't know if I just mentioned that. I was learning sitar. In India, I was doing a lot of different things. Everyone there was. The program's great. There's so many different things you'd be doing. On campus, I'm involved in a lot, as I'm sure you've heard from everybody who's spoken. I'm in an a cappella group. I just came from rehearsal. I also play club soccer for the guys soccer team, and I'm, as of late, getting involved in a Chinese think tank that we're starting with a couple other of guys, 2 from Bridge Year, last year. So definitely kept busy, just like everybody else. So yeah, welcome.
So it looks like we're still waiting for our first question or questions. So I just want to encourage any viewers to pose questions if they have questions for our panelists, or any question about the program or about the application process, anything along those lines. In the meantime, maybe each of our panelists can share a favorite moment from their Bridge Year experience. I'll give you a moment to think about that as I remind viewers that the deadline for the application is May 17th. So make sure you get your applications in by May 17th. It looks like a question just came in, but do you guys want to answer that, respond to that favorite moment question, and then we'll get to some of the questions here?
Yeah, I can take this one. Well, one moment that really sticks out to me, and that's always fun to share, is this was on a trip. We spent a month in Rajasthan, which is in the west of India, and that's like a deserty area. And we were in this village, and it was, I guess, it was out of the way. So we were sleeping. The homestays we had there, we were sleeping outside, and our instructor and I both shared a homestay for a couple days, and we had one of the families that was like kind of one of the centers of the village, I guess you could say, and so we were sleeping on these cots outside, and in the room with us was like 30 goats, and so we were sleeping in these cots and like in this room filled with goats, and which is just an interesting thing to be doing. And then at night before we went to sleep, like all of the kids, I want to say like maybe 20 kids, would gather on the porch and watch us fall asleep. And so you're kind of like looking, it's hard to fall asleep when 20 people are looking at you. So we sat up and we couldn't really communicate, but we started singing songs back and forth. So we were singing. I just have like a very vivid memory of singing "I Can't Get No Satisfaction" to like, I don't know, 20 kids who didn't understand what I was saying, and I actually just wrote a paper about that song, which is funny, anyways. But yeah, that was a pretty funny moment, and definitely a memory that I treasure.
Thanks, Sammy. I know Omid, Becca, and Yuri, you probably have lots of favorite moments you want to share, and hopefully we can get to that. But why don't we kind of jump to some of these questions, just so we make sure we respond to everyone's questions here. And the first one how have you overcome language barriers as part of your service placement? I don't know if any of you guys want to talk about how, maybe more broadly, how the language learning takes place on the program, and kind of how challenging it was for you to kind of integrate into the service work and the homestay and the experience in general, given the kind of language barrier.
I guess I can take this one. So I came to Senegal not speaking French, not speaking Wolof, and those are the two main languages that you use there. But one of the things you learn is that immersion really is the best way to learn a language. So what we had was we would have language lessons every day, and we would alternate between Wolof and French, especially at the beginning of the year. And you pair that with just daily immersion. I mean, you want to do anything, you have to practice the language that you're learning, and pretty fast you pick it up. And at my service site, the language was both French and Wolof. And I think this kind of immersion, your homestay family, you're always talking to them in the language, and also the lessons really make it really easy to pick up the language. And I think all of us at least on the Senegal program, we all had a really easy time kind of integrating from the language aspect.
So most of the people who did Brazil had taken Spanish before, though not all. I had taken 6 years of Spanish. I still wasn't fluent though, but that really helped give the basis for Portuguese. And now we could speak Portuguese fluently by the end of the program. Our homestay families didn't speak English, but that was actually really great, and they were really patient with us and understanding. And you just kind of get by. And then when you get to that moment where you can really communicate, it's so rewarding and it feels so fulfilling. And then at the service site, no one at my service site spoke English, and so that was a big challenge at first, especially with the kids, talking to them. But kids are also the best people to practice a language on, because they don't judge you and they'll correct you, and everyone worked so hard to make us feel comfortable, and they would ask us about English, and that was cool to have that exchange and be teaching each other. And I would say by a couple months in, we were able to really get around and communicate.
So specifically regarding this service placement, I went in speaking no Chinese, and a lot of the nonprofits that Bridger partners with in China will have people there who speak, limited English, will be able to help. But my experience with it was generally that as you learn the language better, the responsibility that you have at the NGO also increases. So it's you overcome it kind of with time and with just building relationships and trust with the people at your service site.
Great, thanks. Why don't we move along to the next question, just so we can make sure we get through everything. What sort of opportunities can you pursue while in host communities? I've spoken to students who have joined gyms and taken dance lessons, etc. What activities did you all pursue? I think each of you can probably answer that pretty quickly, but you wanna start, Sammy?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot to do and a lot offered. In India, where I was playing sitar 2 or 3 days a week with a master, and I don't know. There's so much offered. You really can just pursue your interests. We had people doing everything from fire dancing to learning a script of an offshoot language to me playing sitar. It was a lot of fun.
So, like I said, music and dance are a really big part of the culture. So capoeira is this Afro-Brazilian martial arts dance, and that was something we all did and we really enjoyed. We also took samba lessons, which is a type of dance. We did cooking classes, which was one of my favorites. We had a Portuguese book club, and we all read stories and shared them. And you can go to the beach, there's concerts, so there's a lot of activities.
So I also did music stuff. I took a ukulele with me, and there's a lot of parks in China that are communal spaces, and people will gather and play music. So my friend and I, we didn't do any like official like extracurricular, but we would go to these parks and just kind of play music with whoever was there.
Yeah, like everybody else said, there's a lot to do. A lot of it is music based. We took drum lessons. Also, playing soccer on the beach, and then there's a special type of wrestling called Senegalese wrestling that I tried to pick up, and there really is a wide range of stuff to do. One of the other kids on the program, he went and he did theater, Wolof theater, and he really enjoyed that. So.
Our partner, as of next year, at all of our sites is going to be Where There Be Dragons, and a kind of central component to the Each Dragons program is this something we call a cultural enrichment activity. So all of the types of things that the panelists have talked about are, things we would consider cultural enrichment activities, and typically students, after the second or third month of the program, after they've kind of settled in at the service assignment, after they have developed some language skills, developed some comfort level at the homestay family, this is typically when they will start to focus on a particular cultural activity. So moving right along, there's a question from Jorge Reyes. Do you think missing out a year of school hurt you? As a possible mechanical engineering major, I'm worried about this. I will turn this over to the panel, but I do want to quickly say that this is probably one of the most common questions we get at the Bridger office. Students who are, I guess there's two pieces to this, just concern about falling behind their peers or their classmates in high school. And then there's another piece which is concerns about developing some rust or rustiness in particularly the maths and sciences, taking a year off from academics to do a program like this. So do any of you guys want to jump in? Do you have a perspective on this question, or I guess these two parts to this question?
Yeah, so that was definitely one of my worries, but it hasn't affected me here. I can't speak to math and sciences as much, although a lot of my calculus has come back from senior year. But I think it was really refreshing to have a year away from school, and it really helped give me energy for this year, and I was so excited to come back to classes. I think that, like Scott said, it's one of the most common worries, and then now talking to my friends who didn't do gap years, whether that be Bridge or other gap years, it seems like one of the most common regrets is that they didn't do it, because you're not really losing anything. It's this like year in between college and high school where you don't have other responsibilities, and like you can just learn, so it's like an extra rather than taking away from anything.
Yeah, I just want to take all of that and go further. I think that if anything, this is like one of my favorite myths to dispel, you could say. If anything, it's such an enriching environment, and you get so much out of it, even academically. I think that, well, I mean, I have a friend who's an engineer who is in India with me, who's loving it. He's having no problems. Him and then another good friend, we had like this Mr. Engineer thing at Princeton, and two Bridge year guys are in a group of 5, if that tells you anything. I mean, people come from Bridge year with so much perspective and with so much to add and so much curiosity. I'm taking Chinese right now. I was in India, but I'm taking Chinese, and I'm going on Princeton in Beijing. I'm a part of a Chinese think tank now. I mean, there's so much you can get out of it, and I really, really hope that whatever decision you make as to whether to apply or not is not based on thinking that you'll something will be detractive academically. So.
I'm going to agree with everything Becca and Sammy have said. I think that, you know, it might be possible that you forget like some of the calculus formulas if you come back and you're trying to jump into math or something, and it might be hard, you know, the first couple of weeks trying to catch up and remember everything that you learned in high school. But like the Princeton classes paces are also extremely fast, so you will be basically at the same level as everyone else. Like only maybe, you know, maybe the first couple of weeks will be like, oh wow, I wish I had remembered this from, you know, May, but after like the first couple of weeks, everything is going to be just as hard for everyone. And like in terms of like precept or answering essays, I think like the perspective that you get from doing bridge year like really aids you like in confidence and like in writing ability and just like a variety of things, and it will actually help your academic career rather than like hurt your career.
So I think I completely agree with what everybody else has said about like the extracurricular activities and everything, and I'll take the math question specifically because my major Orphe, I have to take a lot of math classes just starting from freshman year, and what I found is that there was no meaningful difference between me, who hadn't done math for a year, and my other bridge year friends, like Sammy said, who hadn't done math for a year, and the other kids in our classes. And I think it's because I think we've been saying the perspective thing a lot, but being independent for a year really teaches you a lot of skills that you can apply then in your classes, whether that's time management or living on your own. And all of these skills come together, so when you're taking a class like math that requires discipline and doing all your work, I think bridge year directly translates to that. And I think the best argument for it is that none of the bridge year engineers have found it significantly different than other engineers entering.
You know, there's another question that's up here that is kind of similar, and I'll let you guys basically decide. You know, if there's anything you want to add to what you've just said. The question is, how has your bridge year experience affected your academic path at Princeton? So I'll let you guys think about that. But before I turn it back to you, I want to just respond to this question about from Alexander. How do you get assigned your service placement? I know that you list your preferences on the application, but I'm curious about the specifics of service placement and to what extent participants have say in the matter. So if anyone wants to add to what I'm about to say, feel free. But otherwise, I think we can go back to this question about how bridge year affected your academics. But basically, there is an opportunity in the application process to indicate your service interests, but basically when you arrive at the program location, you'll have a much kind of broader and more intensive opportunity to learn about the specific service placements. So you'll, in many cases, go and visit them, or representatives from these organizations will come and present to the group, and then there'll be kind of a dialogue that will occur between you and the on-site staff. So in that conversation, you'll kind of indicate what your interests are, what your preferences are, and there'll be a dialogue. I mean, I don't want to give you the impression that the students get to choose their service placements, but the students' interests factor heavily in where they're ultimately placed. So the on-site staff who have close relationships with the hosting organizations, service placement organizations, they know, they have a much better sense of kind of who is a good fit at each placement, and where you might be best situated, but they're not going to place you somewhere where you're unhappy or somewhere where you don't want to be. So there's kind of a conversation that occurs between the student and the on-site staff, you know, that kind of balancing out the interests of the students and the needs of the organization. Does anyone have anything to add to that, or do you guys want to go back to this question about the ways in which the Bridge Year has impacted your academics or your Princeton experience?
I can go right into the question that you posed, Scott, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so if anything, I mean, I view the way Bridge Year has affected my academic experience as like a broadening device. I wouldn't say that the way I think necessarily is fundamentally changed, or that, you know, that my interests have completely changed. I definitely did a lot of, I mean, I did some reading in developmental economics over there, and I'm interested in that stuff now. As a side note, I mean, I'm also a research assistant, as Omid was saying. I'm a research assistant for a person in Woody Woo, and you know, I'm doing stuff on economic diversification, which was stuff I was reading in India and having direct, you know, experience with. But I would just say that it gives you a lot of perspective, and with that perspective, you know, you can work it into your interests, or you know, you can really do what you want with it and make decisions from there. So I think it just gives you more options, if anything.
Yeah, so I'm still undecided about what my ultimate major is going to be. Before I did Bridge Year, I was wondering if I was going to figure it out there, but I didn't. I just became interested in education for my service site. I became interested in culture. I took an international relations class this semester, and I think, like what Sammy said, it just provides so much, such a deeper level of perspective on cultural differences, on privilege. I think it also teaches you learn how to be independent and improvise and be flexible during Bridge Year, and that really helps with coursework and choosing classes, and also not getting stressed out over the little things of academics, like turning in a paper on time and stuff like that. So I think in a more holistic way, it also helps you.
So I think this is a very personal thing, and it affects different people. I mean, different people in a lot of different ways. Everybody's experience is unique, and I think that's one of the strengths of the program. For me, I think it really clarified exactly what I wanted to do, because as Sammy did, I read a lot about developmental economics, and I realized that I really, really enjoyed the field. And I also like to use my math, which led to me becoming an Orphe major. So and as Becca said, it's really a holistic, it improves your academics holistically. I mean, there's a lot that goes into being a student here, and a lot of it that's not just studying, that affects how you perform academically, and I think Bridge Year really helps with that stuff, just like Becca said.
Also, I've gotten a sense that professors really like Bridge Year students in general, just because the Bridge Year students tend to have a good reputation on campus for being interested, and they also think that your story and what you have to add is interesting. So.
Okay, I think we can move on to the next question, which is also a little bit related, I guess. It's from Rebecca New. How did the Bridge Year change you? Was it the way you expected? Why or why not? I think we get this question a lot. I think people are always expecting the program to change you in kind of profound ways. I don't know. Was that your experience?
I guess I think the biggest thing is it changes you, but not necessarily in the ways you expect. I went to it thinking I would get, I mean, like Scott said, I went into it thinking, I'll really, as a person, change and self-discovery and all this stuff. But I think one of the biggest things is it taught me to be a lot more flexible, and living with a host family, and living in a culture where you're outside of that culture, at least coming in, you don't speak the language. It really forces you to kind of take stock of when it's important to be flexible, how you can be flexible, and I think that's something that's transferred over here big time.
Yeah, I think Omid put it really well. Like, I don't think that the changes that you feel, you keep feeling after you finish, and like I still feel it now, and like there isn't necessarily what you expect that happens, but I feel like for me it was in a way it was a humbling experience. I just learned that like my big grand ambitions or dreams weren't necessarily always the right ones or always going to happen, but like in every aspect, I guess it's like the perspective thing. It's the more perspective you have, like the more humble of a perspective you have as well.
So one of the things that I loved most about Bridge Year was being able to figure out like who I was more, and you can really reflect on who you are when you're in this different, like, fresh context that's totally different culturally. You're not surrounded by your friends from high school or your family who are kind of like defining who you are without you even realizing it, and you're interacting and having these really rich relationships with people in your service site and your homestay family. So I don't think you become a different person or anything, like Omid said, but I think Bridge Year definitely helps you enrich and like your own understanding of the person you are, and that's been really helpful being at college. Like everything seems easy from now on, kind of after Bridge Year.
Okay, so I want you guys to answer this question about the length of the program, but before going there, I just wanted to respond to this question from Theo. Are you more or less likely to be placed in a location where you already somewhat speak the language? So this is also a question we get a lot, and the way I usually respond is that it kind of depends on your interests. In any given program, language is not a prerequisite to participate in this program. So in any given program, there will be students who have no prior language experience in the target language, and there may also be people who have extensive experience. From our perspective, what's most interesting is why you want to participate in a given program. So if language plays a part in that, whether it's because you want to go to Bolivia because you already speak Spanish well and you feel like it will help you engage in the community service work, that's great. Or if you really want to go to Senegal because you've always been fascinated with French or with West African languages, even though you've never had the opportunity to study that also can be compelling. So from our perspective, it's less important the amount of previous language experience, and more important kind of the rationale that you make for choosing the program location that you do. And like I said, language could be a part of that, but not necessarily. So let's answer this question about the duration, because I think this is a question that we get a lot. How did you find the length of the program? I'm a bit scared that being 9 months away from home in a new country may be slightly daunting.
Okay, I'll take that one. Yeah, 9 months is a long time. It's not. I mean, you could say I say a lot about, oh yeah, like it's really, it's not that bad. It's a long time. But that being said, you do have tools to communicate with your family and friends. You Skype, you phone call. I talked with my parents a lot on the phone. But at the same time, I think one of the strengths, one of the things that really made a positive impact on my experience in the program was that during the program, you go through these moments that really push you, probably as a factor of time. and those moments are places where you really grow and you really learn. So we had this thing in India called the January Slump, which was funny because me and one other guy were like, "What are you talking about? This is a great time." And then the week after that, or something like that, I had this rough week at work where nothing was going my way. I was getting subbed into a bunch of classes as a teacher, and it's this moment where you're there for so long and it can be really trying, but those are moments where you really learn, and I think if you can convince yourself to take the leap, then that's where the magic happens. So.
Also, times like Christmas or big holidays, your birthday might be especially hard because you're used to spending them with your family and friends. But it's also like a really good bonding time with your new host family and your friends. It's like a time to like make new traditions and also kind of see what the culture there does for, like, say, birthdays or Christmas, or if they don't celebrate Christmas, you also get to experience all their holidays. So yeah, it's hard, but I think that the benefits that you gain from being able to stay there for 9 months and really experience like a broad range of holidays and is also a huge plus.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we talk about 9 months being too long, because I think everybody definitely going into it, especially the first month, you're always thinking, wow, I'm going to be here for 9 months. But I think once you get past the January part, and we had the January slump too, all of us in Senegal, but once you get past that, you start to feel like 9 months is a very short amount of time, and especially towards the latter months, it really dawns on you just how short of a time it has become. So I think going into it, you'll view it as a long time, and coming out, you'll look at it as not long enough at all.
Yeah, I second all of that. That was my biggest worry, I think, the 9 months. But I was able to talk to my parents, WhatsApp my friends, and there was never a single moment where I regretted going or wished I could go home, even when I was sick or feeling a little homesick. So I think that's just testament to the fact that, like, the experience is so valuable, like, partly because it's so long and immersive, and you really become part of that community.
Okay, thanks, guys. Let's try to get through some more of these questions. Caleb Visser asked, has it been incredibly difficult to reintegrate into an environment of more privilege and living in a developing country for 9 months? And you guys can respond to this any way you want, but maybe you guys could mention the re-entry workshop that you guys do at the end of the program. That's part of each program. Maybe how that impacted the transition back, but answer it any way you think best.
I think that reintegration is hard, and like, so there's what Scott mentioned. There's like the reintegration orientation, which helps you get oriented to think about the differences that you might feel or see when you go back. But it still is hard because it's going to be a pretty jarring experience to go from like living in Senegal or even having seen like rural China and then going back to the States or wherever you're from. But I don't think that that's necessarily bad that it's hard, because basically it being hard just means that you've gained a lot of perspective and like you're able to see what you have, and be thankful for a lot of stuff, and also realize that like you might be like living in excess in certain ways. So I think it was hard, but I think I'm really glad that it was hard.
Yeah, I'll go next. I went straight from. I had a really interesting time after I got off the plane. On the way back, my cousins stayed at my house like that night or the night after, and then another cousin had a wedding and the whole family was there, and then 3 days later I was a camp counselor at one of my favorite summer camps. And so I think reintegration is, I'm sure, different for everybody. For me, it happened really fast, and then I was, I was busy in a camp environment, and then I was at Princeton. But at the same time, I think, I'm spending the summer in China, so I don't know how, there are different degrees that you reintegrate. I think there's something that sticks with you about your experience, no matter what you do.
Yeah, I was really upset before I left, and for a few days when I got back, I just missed it a lot, and I just wanted to be back. But it was actually kind of crazy for me how fast everything felt normal again, and like a little scary, but it almost was like I was just like living like a different me. It was like living a life like there, and then like I came back, and it just felt like it was kind of back to normal. But then like throughout the summer you get back, I think you have these out-of-body experiences. Like I'd be walking down the street and I'd hear people speaking, and it would be English, and like I'd be like, what? It's not Portuguese. I can understand them. Or like using American money at first, or having your favorite food that you haven't had in a while. But I think it depends for each person, and for me it was actually pretty easy going straight back into
Cincinnati. Just to jump off real quick, a funny story. I finished my last Chinese test of the semester, and this is about reintegration, I promise. I finished my last Chinese test of the semester, and as soon as I finished, I was like, okay, great. And I walked to the bathroom, and as I opened the door, and I thought to myself, "Ho gaya," which is like Hindi for "I'm finished," which is like blew my mind, because immediately I was like, oh my god, I'm thinking in Hindi right now. Like I just finished my last Chinese test, so that's just like moments where you think you're reintegrated, where you really aren't. Sorry, Scott, I'll pass the time.
No, not at all. So I want to answer this question. My parents are slightly worried about student safety. Has safety been an issue? And I'd love to hear from all the panelists about their perspective on the health and safety that you experienced during your program. But before I turn it over to you guys, this is a question we get a lot. There is risk involved in taking part in the Bridge Year program. I mean, there's risk involved in whenever you travel overseas. But obviously, health and safety of the students is something we take very seriously. We partner with an organization at each of these locations that has a long relationship in the community and very strong connections within the community. They have a great track record for responding to health and safety incidents. Prior to the program, we host a pre-departure orientation here on campus where we talk about managing health and safety. When the students arrive at their program locations, they're subjected to another extensive orientation discussing health and safety and kind of tips for managing health and safety during the program. As I said, our partners have been in these communities for a long time and have connections to great local resources that can manage all the types of things that tend to come up on this type of program. But we also have relationships with an organization called International SOS, which helps positions Princeton to respond to kind of larger crises if they were to occur. So there are many layers to kind of how we approach safety and security. I think it's something we do very well. I think it's something our partner does very well. If there are specific questions about safety at any of these particular locations, I invite concerned students and their parents to contact the Bridge Year office at byp@princeton.edu. I'm always happy to put you in touch with parents of a past participant or students who've gone on the program. But anyway, that's my little spiel. Do you guys want to talk at all about your perspective on security and just managing health and safety during the program?
So I guess I'll take like a kind of example of what an example of like a health and safety issue would be. So Ebola actually broke out probably in March of, or it got big probably in March of when I was in Senegal. And so my mom picks up the phone and calls me and asks me what's the situation? I mean, Ebola is a scary thing, so you're wondering how's it, like what's going on. And at that point, I mean, our instructors had already briefed us about it, and I mean, they put health and safety first, no questions asked. We already knew what areas, whatever trips we were going to plan, we were going to avoid any areas that were even a little bit close by. And I think one of the most important things to stress is really health and safety trumps everything else. So beyond that, I mean, I can only speak for Dakar, which is where we live in Senegal, but it's one of the safest cities that you can go to. I mean, it's with a big city, there comes petty crime. You'll have a couple phones pickpocketed, but really, I mean, health and safety, like I said, come first before anything else. So there really is no need to worry on that front.
So yeah, I think parents, when my parents got worried, they would like Facebook message the other parents, and so you can tell and my parents also talked to John and Scott before I applied, so if your parents are worried, you can have them do that. Salvador, I guess not like Dakar, it's not the safest city, but you learn the rules pretty fast. Like, you don't take buses after like a certain time, and it's like really nothing too bad happens. There is pickpocketing and stuff, so you just like have to be careful. Like with food safety, you learn which foods you can eat, like you should wash things, like drink bottled water. But yeah, I would say you like live and you learn, but the program offices are really good about disseminating information quickly. Like when there was a police strike in Salvador, like that morning, we were all like, they communicated with us so fast about like, there's no work today, stay inside, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I second everything that Omid and Becca are saying about the offices being really, really good about it. This was a little skirmish I had with the office about it. Was my homestay sister got married while I was over there, and my instructors in India said, "Oh, you know, draft up a proposal about going," and it was like a 12-hour car trip to a kind of remote area. There wasn't a hospital nearby, so I wrote up this proposal and submitted it, and then the offices in India were like, "Look, we're looking into it. There's just no way, you know, you can't go. It's, if anything were to happen, it just wouldn't be a good situation." So that's an example of, you know, even this is from a student's perspective, but you know, they will look after you, and they will guide you and help you to make the right decisions. As to the pickpocketing and the petty stuff, I mean, I dropped my phone in an alley and it was gone in like 30 seconds, and I went back and, you know, no phone. But for the bigger things, you know, the right people are on your side, and you really are hypersensitive. At least a lot of us were in India. You know, you're in a completely different place, so you have a lot of sense of when something is off. But anyways, anyone else wants to take that, or we want to move on? It's fine.
I think we should move on. In fact, I think we have time for just one more question. I'll let you guys respond to the question from Rebecca about. But before I do, I want to answer Emily's question real quick. Do you work on service projects by yourself or with other students from the Bridge Year program? Each program will likely have a group service project at the very beginning of the program for somewhere between 1 week and 3 weeks, and possibly again at the end of the program. It kind of depends on the program. But the vast majority of the program, the kind of 7.5, 8 months in between, you will be placed in a service assignment by yourself. On very rare occasions will two students be placed in the same service placement, but generally speaking, each Bridge Year student is placed in their own service placement. So last question, struggling figuring out how to rank the locations. Can some people try to compare, contrast their experiences based on their locations? Guys, this is your opportunity to sell your Bridge Year program. Take it away.
All right, pick me. I will. Okay, so I ranked China first, full disclosure, and I ranked India second. And I would not ever in a million years go back and change things around. I mean, my experience in India was the most fantastic thing in the world. My homestay family was amazing. The things I learned were amazing. And I mean, it's weird, you know, I'm like learning Chinese and going to China. I think that's part of like a, you know, wanderlust and whatever, but apply to India.
So Bridge Year was by far the best year of my life and the best decision I ever made. And I actually just I have pictures on the wall. So if you want, it's the most beautiful country. The natural beauty is amazing. There's beaches. It's so sunny and warm. You'll never want to come back to the States. And tropical. The kids are so cute. Literally, I miss them so much. And basically, it's a wonderful place, and it's such a relevant country, to your studies here. Portuguese is a really good language to learn if you're interested in, the BRICS countries, stuff like that. So, yeah, Brazil.
So speaking about relevant countries, China is sort of relevant to the world. Everybody should apply for China. No, actually, that's not true. I think you should apply to China if you're interested in learning about diverse cultures, because the place that you'll be in China is a very diverse place ethnically. There's 25 ethnic minorities in the area. And also, if you're looking for kind of an urban experience, because you'll be spending a lot of your time in a city. I mean, obviously you get to travel, you get to go to rural areas, and you get to go to go up mountains and across deserts and stuff, which is also amazing. But China has a lot to offer. The people are so nice, and it's also just things are happening there.
So I'll close out with a short little pitch for Senegal. I think the first thing you should know about Senegal is known as the country of Teranga, which means hospitality, and everybody is so hospitable. I mean, everything in Senegal is about sharing. Even the word for thank you and you're forgiven, they both come from the word we share. I mean, really, it's a country with an unbelievable culture. You'll see these dichotomies every day. I mean, just the fact that in Dakar you'll be speaking Wolof and French, these weird mixtures, places where cultures intersect. I mean, it's really incredible just observing how everything has led up to Senegal being the country that it is today. And I guess I'll close out with, so you're going to live probably 5 minutes from the beach, and every weekend you can go sit on the beach, play soccer on the beach, chill on the beach. I mean, it's incredible. It's beautiful. Some of the most beautiful waterfalls in the world are in southeast Senegal. So I want everybody to make Senegal your first country.
This probably made it more difficult to make a decision than easier, but thanks for everyone's perspectives on that. There is another program that's not, we don't have a representative here, and that's our Bolivia program, and that's because next year will be the first year that we're running the Bolivia program, but it is also a very interesting and compelling program. I encourage everybody to go to our website, www.princeton.edu/bridgeyear. There's a program locations page with lots of detailed information about each of these programs and the service placement opportunities and what makes each program very unique. Unfortunately, we have run out of time I apologize that we didn't get to all of the questions, but please do email the Bridger office at byp@princeton.edu, or email any of the students. You have their email addresses under their names with any questions that we didn't get a chance to answer for you tonight. I want to thank you very much for taking part and asking all of these great questions. Remember that the deadline for the application is May 17th. And I want to thank our panel. Thanks so much for all of your great responses. With that, I'll turn things back over to Dan.
Scott, thank you. Students, thank you very much. And to all of those who watched the program tonight, we really appreciate your joining us. This broadcast will be recorded to the Princeton University YouTube channel and to our Google Plus page, so you can watch it again or send a link of the broadcast to your parents or friends who are interested in the program. This is one of several Princeton University Google Plus Hangouts. We'll have another one at noon Eastern Time on Thursday about the Ebola outbreak in Africa. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening, everyone.